Let me guess. You've got at least one kitchen cabinet you open carefully because you're not totally sure what's going to shift when you do. Maybe a counter that's collected things over the years that you keep meaning to deal with. A junk drawer that you've stopped trying to explain. And every few weeks you think, okay, this weekend I'm doing it. And then the weekend comes and somehow it doesn't happen. I did that for 3 years. And I want to tell you something before we get into anything else. That's not a willpower problem. That's a method problem. Because the way most people approach decluttering, the way I kept approaching it, was never designed for a kitchen that has real history in it, or for a person with a real body, real energy limits, and better things to do than spend a Saturday feeling overwhelmed by their own home. So I stopped doing it the right way, and I started doing it backwards, and I decluttered this kitchen in half the time any of my previous attempts had taken, combined. This is the senior reset. We're here every day talking about how to live better, move easier, and feel more at home in your actual life, not some idealized version of it. If you're new here, subscribe now because what's coming to this channel in the next few weeks is genuinely going to help. But today, 4 backwards tricks, why they work, and how you can start using them this week. Trick number 4 is the one I'd never heard anywhere before, and it's the one that changed how I think, not just how I organize. Let me tell you what doing it the right way looked like for me. Because I tried it more than once, I watched the videos, bought the bins, got a label maker, which I was genuinely excited about if I'm being honest. I pulled everything out of a cabinet, spread it across the kitchen table, and stood there with a marker going, okay, keep, donate, or toss. By early afternoon, my back was done, I had more mess than when I started, and I had to put everything back because I needed the table for dinner. Not organized back, just back. I did a version of that 3 different times. And the 3rd time, I didn't even get very far before I sat down, made a cup of tea, and decided the kitchen was fine. It was not fine, but more than that, I was starting to believe the problem was me. That I just wasn't the kind of person who could do this. And that was the thing I had to fix before any of this could actually work. Here's what I finally understood after that 3rd attempt. The problem was never my motivation. The problem was that every system I had tried was designed for someone with unlimited energy, a completely clear schedule, and no emotional history with anything in their kitchen. That is not me, and I'm willing to bet that's not you either. So I stopped following the rules, and I started working backwards. Before I get into trick number 1, I want to say something about how these 4 tricks work together, because this isn't 4 separate tips you can pick and choose from. Think of it as a system with 4 parts. The first 2 tricks are about how you work, where you start, and for how long. The second 2 tricks are about how you think, how you process what you're holding, and how you decide what stays. You need all 4 working together for this to feel genuinely different from what you've already tried. Trick number 1, start in the middle, not at the top. Every organizing expert will tell you the same thing. Start with your biggest problem area, tackle the hardest thing first, get the worst of it done, and everything else will feel manageable. And I understand the logic, I really do. But here's where most people get it wrong. When you start with the hardest area, you are starting at your lowest point. You're staring at the most overwhelming zone with the most decisions to make when your energy and patience are already going to drop within the first 30 minutes. You set yourself up to quit, and then you feel worse than when you started. So here's the backwards version. Start in the middle. Not the top cabinets, too much reaching and usually full of things you haven't touched in years. Not the bottom cabinets, bending, crouching, and that's usually where the bulkiest, most awkward things live. The middle zone. And when I say the middle zone, I want to be specific because this matters. I mean the shelves and drawers that sit roughly between your waist and your shoulders. The ones you don't have to reach above your head for and don't have to bend down to open. In most kitchens, that's 2 or 3 drawers and 1 or 2 cabinet shelves at eye level. That is your zone. Start there. This is where your daily life actually happens. The drawer you open every morning, the shelf your hands go to without thinking. I started with the 2 drawers I use most, the everyday utensil drawer, and the one that had quietly become home to things that didn't belong anywhere else. In the utensil drawer, I found 4 spatulas. 4, I am one person. I kept the one that actually works, the one that flips things without bending. And the other 3 went into a bag for donation. That drawer now closes smoothly every single time without me pushing anything out of the way first. That took 11 minutes. And I want to be honest with you, clearing that one drawer did not transform the kitchen. The upper cabinets were still untouched. The lower cabinet with the awkward stuff was still waiting. None of that had moved. But what did change was something quieter. I woke up the next morning, opened that drawer, and it just worked, and something in me shifted. Not dramatically, not the way the shows make it look. Just a small, practical thought. This is actually doable. That's the whole point of starting in the middle. You are not fighting your worst clutter with your freshest energy. You are building real momentum where momentum is easiest to build, in the part of the kitchen your hands already know, and then you carry it forward from there. Don't start at the top, don't start at the bottom. Start where your daily life already lives. Trick number 2, set a timer for exactly 17 minutes. Then stop. 17 minutes, not 15, not 20, not work until you feel like stopping. 17. The standard advice is to set aside a whole morning or a full Saturday afternoon. The idea is that you need real, sustained time to make progress. And what actually happens, what I experienced every single time, is that somewhere around the 40-minute mark, your decision-making quietly falls apart. You start second-guessing things you were completely sure about 20 minutes earlier. You pick something up and put it back down 3 times. You go back and re-examine things you'd already decided to donate. This is not weakness. This is just how the human brain works under sustained pressure. Every decision we make costs something, a small amount of mental energy. And decluttering is relentless decision-making. Every single item you touch is a choice. Keep it, let it go, think about it later. Every one of those is a decision. And the more you make in a row without a break, the worse your judgment gets. The research on this is clear, and honestly, so is common sense. This matters for all of us. And it matters especially as we get older because our energy, our physical comfort, our ability to sustain focus, all of it is more finite than it was at 35. That's not something to apologize for, it's just true. And working with that truth instead of against it is exactly the kind of thinking this whole approach is built on. Now I know what some of you are already thinking. 17 minutes? That's nothing. I'm not going to make any real progress in 17 minutes, and I hear that. I thought the same thing. 17 minutes felt like I was barely getting started. But here's the shift. Stop measuring success by how long you worked. Measure it by how clearly you were deciding for every minute you were working. 17 minutes of sharp, confident decisions is worth more than 90 minutes where you've talked yourself into keeping things you know you don't need. So you set the timer, you work on one zone, just one, you don't jump to a different area, you don't pull out more than you could put back in the 17 minutes. And when the timer goes off, you stop. Even if you feel like you could keep going, especially if you feel like you could keep going, because that feeling is exactly the energy you want to start with tomorrow. One practical question that will come up: what do you do when the timer goes off and you're mid-task with things still pulled out? Don't leave them scattered. Take 2 or 3 minutes to put back whatever you haven't decided on yet. That is not failing. That is part of the process. You are not required to finish what you started in one session. You are required to leave the space manageable so you can come back tomorrow and actually want to. Here's what happened when I started doing this consistently. By day 3, I cleared an entire shelf in 12 minutes. Because I wasn't tired when I started. My back wasn't already aching, my decision-making was still sharp because I hadn't already made 40 decisions before I touched that shelf. And some days, I did 2 17-minute sessions with a break in between. Cup of coffee, sat down, let my back settle, then set the timer again. 2 sessions of 17 minutes with rest in between is more effective and more comfortable than one unbroken push that leaves you dreading tomorrow. Work with your body, not against the calendar. We've got 2 more tricks coming, and I want to be upfront with you. These next 2 go deeper. Tricks 1 and 2 are about how you work. Tricks 3 and 4 are about how you think. And for a lot of us, that's where the real work actually is. But first, if what you've heard so far feels different from the decluttering advice you've come across before, that's intentional. That is what the Senior Reset is built to do every single week. We don't talk about pushing through things. We talk about working smarter than the advice that was never designed for us in the first place. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that right now. And turn on notifications, because next week I'm covering the one room that almost everyone leaves until last. and it turns out that room has been quietly draining the energy every single morning. I think it's going to change how a lot of people start their days. Trick number 3, touch everything once, but don't decide anything. I know how that sounds. Like I'm telling you to do less work or to put off the hard part. I'm not. I'm telling you to do different work first. The standard rule in decluttering, the one every professional organizer will repeat, is touch it once, decide immediately, pick something up, make your call, move on, don't revisit, don't second guess, decide and go. And for someone sorting through a storage unit full of things they've never had any real connection to, sure, that works fine, but this is your kitchen. For most of the people watching this is a kitchen you have been cooking in for years, maybe decades. These are not random objects, they are the physical record of your life. That baking pan with the dark stain in the corner, you know exactly what that stain is from. That set of mixing bowls has fed people you love, holidays, birthdays, ordinary Tuesday dinners that somehow ended up mattering. Asking someone to pick that up, decide in 5 seconds, and move on without a second thought. That is not organizing. That is how people end up standing in their kitchen feeling guilty and overwhelmed, putting everything back and deciding the whole project is too hard. I've been there. So here's the backwards version. On your first pass through any zone, touch everything, but decide nothing. Pick it up, hold it for a moment, let your hands remember it. Then put it back, no decision required, no pressure, just contact. What you are actually doing is giving your brain a chance to start processing without the weight of having to act on anything yet. You're taking inventory, not of the objects, but of how you feel about them. And by the time you come back the next day or a few days later, something has shifted. Quietly, without you forcing it. Decisions that felt impossible start to feel more obvious because the emotional work has already happened. You just didn't have to manage it consciously. Let me give you a real example because I think the specific examples are the only way this actually makes sense. I have a ceramic rooster, has been sitting on the top shelf of one of my cabinets since 1987. My sister gave it to me. It is not beautiful. It has never matched anything in my kitchen. It has survived 4 different paint colors and 2 renovations without anyone ever asking why it was still there. First pass, I picked it up, looked at it, put it back. No decision. The next day, I picked it up again, and I laughed, actually laughed out loud alone in my kitchen, at this ridiculous ceramic rooster that had somehow outlasted multiple presidents. And I put it in the donation bag. Then I took it back, out. Then I put it back in the bag again, closed the bag, and moved it by the door. I'm not telling you that this trick makes every decision painless. It doesn't. What it does is make them possible. Without that first pass, where there was no pressure to decide, I think I would have put that rooster back on the shelf for another 10 years just to avoid the moment of actually choosing. And I want to say something directly here because I think it needs to be said. Some of what is sitting in your kitchen carries real weight. Things that belong to someone who isn't here anymore. Things that connect you to a version of your life that has changed. You are not obligated to move through that quickly. The one-day rule is a suggestion, not a deadline. Some things need a week, some need longer. The point is not to rush yourself. The point is to take the pressure of an immediate decision off the table so you can actually think clearly. Touch everything once, decide nothing yet. Then let your brain do the quiet work it is very good at, if you give it a little room. Trick number 4, declutter what you are keeping, not what you are losing. This is the one I said at the beginning that nobody talks about, and I meant it. Every decluttering system is built around the same fundamental question: should I get rid of this? Keep it or lose it? Hold on or let go of it? And there's a very human reason why that question almost never works for long. When you ask, should I get rid of this? Your brain hears the word loss, and most of us will instinctively resist losing something, even when keeping it doesn't actually serve us anymore. We would rather hold on than risk making the wrong call. I know I would. So stop asking that question entirely. Flip it. Instead of asking, should I get rid of this? Start asking, does this earn its space? That is a completely different question, and it changes everything about how you approach the decision. When you ask, does this earn its space? You are not asking about history. You are not asking about sentimental value or whether it might be useful someday, or what the person who gave it to you would think. You are asking a simple practical question about real estate. This item is occupying shelf space, or drawer space, or counter space, in a kitchen where space is finite. Does it justify being here? And the standard is not harsh. You are not asking whether it brings you joy, which, honestly, most kitchen items don't. A colander doesn't bring me joy, but it earns its space every single time I make soup. The question is simply this: has this been used in the last 90 days? Does it serve the life I am actually living right now, in this kitchen, this week? Not the life I had 10 years ago, not the life I keep meaning to get back to, the life I am living today. I had a pasta maker, a good one, stainless steel, heavy, solid. I bought it in the 90s during a phase where I was completely convinced I was going to make fresh pasta every Sunday. It felt like exactly the kind of person I was becoming. I made fresh pasta twice, total, in 30 years. That pasta maker was taking up an entire deep shelf in my lower cabinet. I had to move it every time I needed my slow cooker, which I used twice a week, and even after I decided it needed to go, I second-guessed it for a week. What if I go through a pasta phase again? It's a good machine. Someone paid real money for that. But I asked the question one more time, not whether I wanted to keep it, whether it had earned that shelf in the past year, whether it was showing up for my actual life. It hadn't, not even close. It went to a neighbor who actually makes pasta, and in its place, I now have a full shelf for my slow cooker, my Dutch oven, and the baking dish I use every Sunday morning. Things that work for the life I am living, not the life I imagine I might get around to living someday. That's the shift. And it's quiet when it happens, not dramatic, just clear. Does this earn its space? Ask that question about everything, and let the honest answer guide you. Now here's the part that brings all of this together, because I want you to see how these 4 pieces connect before we wrap up. Trick 1 tells you where to start, in the middle, where your daily life actually lives, so you get a real win quickly instead of drowning in the hardest problem first. Trick 2 tells you how long. To work, 17 minutes of sharp decisions beats an hour of tired ones every single time. Trick 3 tells you how to process what you're holding. Give yourself a first pass with no pressure and let your brain do the sorting it's quietly capable of. And Trick 4 gives you the question that drives every decision. Not should I lose this, but does this earn its place? Together, those 4 things are a system. And the reason it works when everything else hasn't is because it was built around the reality of the person doing it. Not some imaginary version of you with unlimited energy and no history in your kitchen. Now, here's something I want to say that I don't think gets said enough in this kind of content. This is not really about the kitchen. I mean, it is, practically speaking, yes. You will have cleaner drawers, a counter you can actually use, cabinets that open without that small moment of dread. All of that is real and it matters. But for most of us, people who have been in their homes for a long time, who have cooked thousands of meals in this exact space, decluttering is also a quiet conversation with the life you have lived. Every item you pick up is a memory, a version of yourself you were or wanted to be or thought you might become. And sorting through all of that in one chaotic Saturday with a label maker and 3 bins is not just ineffective. It is unkind to yourself. The backwards approach, the short sessions, the day you give yourself before deciding, the reframe from what am I losing to what is actually serving me, all of it is, at its core, about giving yourself permission. Permission to go at your pace, permission to feel what you feel without letting it stop you from moving forward. Permission to build a home that reflects who you are right now, not who you were when you bought the pasta maker, not who you thought you would be, but who you actually are today, living your actual life. That kitchen, the one that works for you, that feels light, that you move through with ease instead of avoidance. It is not a fantasy. It is a few 17-minute sessions away, and you have already started, just by thinking about it differently. The reset doesn't have a deadline. There is no version of this where you are too far behind or too set in your ways, or where the kitchen has been this way too long to change. The best version of your home is not something you missed. It is being built, one 17-minute session at a time. If one of these tricks landed for you, tell me which one in the comments. I read every single one. And if you know someone who has been putting this off, someone who keeps saying next weekend, share this with them. It might be exactly what gets them started. Subscribe to the Senior Reset, new videos every day. I will see you next week.